We welcome you. It doesn't matter if you're working in Congress, if you're working with an NGO, if you're working in any kind of capacity. Your work is so invaluable and so important as we try to enhance women's standing around the world. Before I start, I'm just back from Geneva, from the Human Rights Council, where we touched on expressing our sympathy as we begin to the people of Haiti and the people of Chile. These countries have been just devastated by horrendous earthquakes, by a tragedy that is really hitting our hemisphere. And the suffering that we have seen has been enormous, and it's been also a sign of the international community coming together, the United States coming together to provide support. And it is, of course, we see it. Even as these calamities occur, we see that women are not only enormously affected themselves, but they really are the ones that come out to heal, to protect, to move some of the communities forward. So it's very interesting that we have International Women's Day arriving right at this point when we are seeing natural disasters that are affecting women and that are showing us the vulnerability, not only of people overall, but also of women themselves. So being able to help, to work with them, to help them seek guidance, to have them be leaders in these efforts is, I think, very important. I'm going to take some of the remarks already, the really wonderful remarks made by Ines already, and remind us that the U.S. government's commitment to addressing women and girls around the world has never been stronger as today. Not only are we investing in health and education and community development programs and strengthening women's standings, but more importantly, we are also addressing the question, if you will, structurally within the State Department. You know, President Obama appointed Ambassador Bevere to be the ambassador for global women's issues, to do precisely what Rita reminded us of, to help mainstream gender into everything that the State Department does. And clearly this commitment reflects our knowledge and our assertion that women's empowerment is linked, it's inextricably linked to security, to peace, to economic opportunity, to effective governance, to social development. It's just a simple fact that if we leave half of a population of a country behind, the country will not move forward. We know, and we've seen the indicators that show that working with women addresses poverty alleviation, it addresses the issue of the way in which a society prospers. We also know that you see a relationship between failed states and societies that don't invest in women. So I'm here talking to the choir, so to speak, but it's very important for us to remember this. And it's very important to be able, in this audience, to have policymakers that can be champions in addressing this. And that's why I think it's wonderful to have Senator Mary Landrieu here with us, because what she can say about this issue and what she can address, along with other policymakers in our Congress, is enormously important in addressing this issue. Just a touch on my role as Undersecretary of Democracy and Global Affairs, which I have to tell you, I'm just glad it's not galactic affairs, but global affairs is already so much. But the issue is that what I oversee in the Department of State addresses issues that have to do with population, with refugee, with migrations. They have to do with environment and science. They have to do with human rights and democracy, and they have to do with trafficking in persons. Broad and ranging portfolio, and as I said, I go from being in a meeting on human rights to one on H1N1 to another one in Copenhagen on climate change. But what is important is that women really predominate in addressing many of these issues. They are not only important in making policies, but they are the ones that also tend to be the first victims. Whether you find them in refugee camps, which I just visited in Kenya and Somalia, the Dadaab camp, and that's where you see a predominant number of women. You see them also as victims of gender-based violence throughout the world. You see women being used as a weapon of war. You see them trafficked by criminal and by thugs, and you see them being victims. But women are also such a source of resilience. And certainly my work in microfinance for over 20 years has demonstrated to me how women can lift themselves up, can lift families up, can help lift communities up, using their ingenuity, their hard work, facing adversity that none of us really know or have experienced. And I continue to see it in my work today. I was in Africa recently, and I met with women who are making every effort to change democratic institutions in their own countries. In countries where we are seeing civil society, the space in which it operates, shrinking. We're seeing constraints being placed on NGOs. We're seeing repression of civil participation. And we see women being drivers and game changers as they try to do their work. Next week, I'm going to meet with women leaders on the issue of climate change, who will be coming together because women, again, are going to be disproportionately affected by the way in which climate change is going to affect agriculture, is going to affect communities, is going to affect and require adaptation as it comes in. So we begin to see the important way in which we can integrate, and I'm really repeating the message that I think was given very rightly so by Rita, that we must integrate women into every effort that we make to solve the global problems of today. That's why I think it's really enormously important that you will have today a panel in which we can see how that is happening in countries that have been in Afghanistan and Haiti, countries that have been vulnerable, countries like Haiti that has been seriously affected. Last week I met with a minister of Women Affairs from Haiti, Marjorie Michel. And it's just amazing to see how it is that she is trying to make sure she's elevating and integrating the issue of women into every effort of reconstruction, not just disaster relief, but long-term reconstruction, and the work that it takes to be able to do that. So this issue of integrating and elevating gender not only must happen at the community level, but certainly our effort is to integrate it into all diplomacy and development priorities that we have under this administration. I'm also very glad that you will be listening and you will be learning more about the work in Afghanistan, because certainly in Afghanistan our commitment with the Women's Plan of Action, Action Plan for Afghanistan, which you know was mentioned in the Secretary address in January in London, is an enormous opportunity to really harness the economic potential and to create, through that process, also a more stable nation. We know that women in Afghanistan today are safer, they have more capacity to be productive, they're more respected members of society than they were just a decade ago. So we also know that under the Taliban, when women were victims of gender and circumstance, women like Soraya were already working and trying to create a better future. And this is the moment in that country where we see that as we move forward, and I think Ines addressed this very well, that this is a moment to ensure that women are at the table as we seek reconciliation, as we address any process for the Taliban, and we need to make sure that this is the case. Let me also make a point about how important, and this breakfast demonstrates it, it is for all of us to be able to work together. The U.S. government is committed to this issue. Secretary Clinton, who I think is a rock star in this, and it's such a privilege